Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. Here's music for Middle Earth. Let's flow.
It's still circling. Uh, did Peter get a credit like for editing? It was that in the credits too that he was also a part of the editing because like editor Peter Jackson. I just thought he was the director. I didn't know he was actually editing too, like literally on the couch, chilling, editing. Okay, it's on.
I remember having a conversation towards the end of the final dub of Fellowship of the Ring in New Zealand with Fran Walsh. Being the eternal optimist that I am, saying to Fran, you know, we've learned, Fran, we've learned so much. I think that we can make a lot of improvements in the next
Right.
film, and it should be much easier. She turned to me and she said, film 2 is going to be the hardest film. It has no beginning, it has no end.
It's a compositional problem.
Oh, I didn't think it would be hard for music. They give you the scenes, right?
And cutting away between the three of them, it's just by the very idea of numbers, it's become a lot more complicated. How do you move seamlessly from one to the other and do that musically?
We feel very strongly on these films that they have to have, a musical shape. We want there to be a build and a progression, show that it's like a sort of opera. So it's like a 9-hour symphony.
Lord of the Rings is one book. It's a novel that was created as a piece. And we're creating a film called The Lord of the Rings. There are 3 separate and distinct films, but they are of a piece.
Yeah, I agree.
Literally only about 10 or 11 minutes.
I feel like it's one whole movie in my own mind, just because of the way I watched it.
Reused in the second film.
So Howard initially went into a phase of writing themes.
So I thought it would be easy just because they have the finished product and then they say this scene needs this type of music, this scene needs this type of music, this scene needs this type of music. And he's saying it's not like that at all.
It wasn't even written until after the Fellowship of the Ring. And when Howard started playing me his original ideas for the Rohan theme, I kept saying to him, I'm humming the Fellowship theme from the first film, I'm humming the Shire theme, but you got to create something that's hummable.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
When I was back in New Zealand at the end of the year,
it's something that's hummable.
And I started to hum the Rohan theme, and she turned to me and she said, "Look, you're doing it. You're humming it. Howard succeeded."
Yeah.
Because of the Viking or the Nordic feeling of Rohan, I wanted to use the Norwegian fiddle, which is called a Hardanger fiddle.
It's more of a folk instrument, and it has what you call sympathetic strings that you don't play, but as you're playing the main strings, they resonate.
Oh, get out. Sympathetic strings?
So I think what I was doing was trying to create the sounds using very specific folk sounds that may have been part of the real world of Rohan.
In addition to the triumphant Rohan theme, there's a whole component that is more moody and more dramatic that plays through Eowyn's issues and challenges and her longing and love, platonic though it might be, for Aragorn.
On Gollum's theme, you hear fragments of what I call the History of the Ring theme from Fellowship. Gollum has the longest relationship with the ring.
Right.
And Gollum also is Frodo's guide to destroying it. So there's a very close relationship with
That was a surprise to me, that Gollum would be guiding them. It's like, what?
There's the Smeagol theme, which has a little more pity in it. It's a little more melancholy. It's a little sadder, really.
Yeah. You know how much attention you have to be paying in order to notice these differences? But if you watch it enough times, you'll be able to sink into the music of it.
And then the second part of Gollum's theme is a more schizophrenic.
Because you're not on the edge of your seat looking at the action. You can really allow the music to sink in. Well, that's what my intention is for my next viewing.
And that uses the cymbalum, which is actually a hammered dulcimer.
I want to be able to be more mindful of the music as I watch it. We'll see.
And because it was one of the instruments of Hobbiton. And Gollum, at one time in his life was a hobbit, a river hobbit.
I keep forgetting that, but
really
yeah.
Slinker, Stinker, they're really reflecting both of those ideas of Gollum.
Fangorn Forest. I cannot believe they are making this music up.
Peter was always giving me mock-ups and Alan Lee drawings of Fangorn because I didn't get to see Treebeard until he was very formed till the end of the process. See. It's interesting because writing music is about how you're feeling about certain imagery. So seeing as much of the imagery as I can is actually a fantastic thing.
Oh, that makes sense. That he would need to see it.
Because of the nature of the woods,
in order to create the music.
Percussion. So you hear wood logs and bass marimbas. I mean, it's essentially the sound of wooden natural elements.
So clever.
It's an instinct in battles to just power music on top of that, to have this this thudding, throbbing, percussive kind of music, because it's almost like the music has to compete with the sound effects in order to actually work, and so you have these two things doing the same job, really. And so I worked very closely with Howard on plotting and planning a musical structure to the Helm's Deep sequence.
Peter would say, as the battle forms, let's go to the smallest child, and you realize that's what the battle's being fought about, families. But it's not the type of music that you would think that would be the big build-up to the big battle. It's quite emotional.
It's a juxtaposition of the music and the pictures, and I think that's a lot more powerful.
So as the tide of battle shifts from one group to another, you hear various thematic ideas take over in Helm's Deep. So when the elf archers start the battle, I used a thematic thread from LotR from Fellowship. But now it's played in battle mode. But as the Uruk-hai approach the wall and they dig in their ladders, the Uruk-hai theme, the Isengard music takes over. So there's always this shifting of focus musically. And Helm's Deep was specifically created with that.
That made me feel like a warrior when they made that shift.
One of the things that we got to do, yet again, one of my favorite things to do on this movie is to work with Howard and to write lyrics.
Fran and Philippa
she wrote lyrics?
based on the scenes.
I think they mentioned that in the first one.
David Sallow, who's a Tolkien scholar.
For the most part, what Fran and Philippa were writing was very close to Tolkien's words, and I would do a translation, and then I would try to do it in a poetic style with a meter, rhyme.
In Two Towers, we use a lot of Old English.
It was set that Old English would become the language of the Rohirrim. In the very first instance, you see it in the lament at the graveside of Thirdred.
She had to remember this?
I wanted to expand the cultural aspect of Lord of the Rings in the singing. I thought of each part of the trilogy having its own cast, and I wrote the pieces very specifically for their voices. So the scenes in Rivendell are now performed by the soprano Isabel Bayrakdarian.
She's Canadian-based, up-and-coming operatic soloist.
Oh, that was just an enchanted song, right?
Then there's another wonderful vocal solo moment created around the Aragorn Arwen story. After Aragorn has fallen off the cliff and he kind of comes to, and that's sung by Sheila Chandra, who is an Indian singer.
She has a very exotic, almost Eastern quality to her singing.
And she has a deeper voice. It's very haunting. She was a wonderful discovery for us for this film. Elizabeth Fraser has now been a guest vocalist in each of the first two films. Elizabeth Fraser's sound in The Cocteau Twins was kind of what we were after.
And by using her voice, it was a reflection of Gandalf's lament from Fellowship.
Right.
We've already established her as being part of the elfin world. And so when we wanted to strengthen the Haldir's death, it was an obvious choice. Oh, let's see what Elizabeth Fraser's up to.
Okay. Yeah, that was surprising. I was not ready for that.
And then we have a 60-piece Voices of London, male-female adult choir, conducted by Terry Edwards. Same people that we've used on the first film.
Okay.
They had to learn the Tolkien languages phonetically, and I think they're getting very fluent in Elvish and in Black speech.
Okay.
We wanted to use the Brompton Oratory voice choir again.
And Ben Del Maestro did all the boy soprano parts. Beautiful singing in the March of the Ents.
Wow.
This particular voice choir is singing a lot of films. They had sung on Harry Potter the week before. They're like movie
really?
stars. Pretty soon they'll have their own trailer.
Okay.
There once was